Okay, one of my methods, my main method that I teach is called pause, focus, flow. It's the same concept as stop, drop, and roll. And you're asking, what does stop, drop, and roll does? It put out our fires. Well, these are your emotional pause, focus, flow puts out your emotional fires.
Welcome to the Strategic Thinkers Podcast. I am excited to be able to have Queen, my sis, Mischelle ONeal here today. One of the things that I always remember about when I first met Mischelle is every time I would talk to her, she was getting a new certificate. And my thing is, what is it that you're doing? Because every time I turn around, you're finding another way to be able to qualify yourself to kind of quiet the noise of everybody being an expert and actually showing not only am I worldly enough where I've seen some things, but I actually went to get the other side of it. So there's book smart and street smart. I think this is someone that has the best of both worlds, and we're in some interesting times. So this seemed like a great guest to be able to have on to talk about stress management, balance, and with so many people going back into the workforce, there's going to be some changes, and better to go in with a plan than to just try to wing it. We know what winging it looks like. So with that, I say, welcome, Mischelle. I am very happy to have you here. And yeah, it's a theme where I keep saying every time I think about someone, when I have questions, who would I ask? And I have the benefit of being able to have access to you. And it's something where I wanted other people to be able to get the benefit of the wisdom that you blessed me with. So this is an opportunity for people to kind of be a fly on the wall and just listen in and hear more about you and everything that you do.
Sean, I'm really honored to be here. But what I really like is, for once, someone gets to be that fly on the wall in between our conversations, because we have some good conversations. So
yes, we do.
I'm excited about being able to share our conversations with others.
Wonderful. Well, without any delay, I want to kind of get into it. Let's start with attention management. You've written that we don't have stress problems, but an attention problem. What made you realize the distinction between what's critical between the women that you coach and just the difference between having that attention problem? What is an attention problem?
Where you put your attention, or where you place your attention, is actually what's going on in your life, what your thought process is, and where you focus is what's happening in your life. And so the thing is, when you're stressed, what are you thinking on? You're thinking on everything that you're worried about. You're thinking about what can you do? How can you do this? How can you change this? And your attention should be on what you can do, what you can focus on. So we don't have control over those external things, not at all. They're out of our control, but we do have control over ourselves, our actions, our reactions, and how we deal with things. See, stress is just a symptom. That's all it is. It's not the root cause. And, I see women doing the right things all the time. They're doing the yoga, the breathing, the time blocking. And look, don't get me wrong. Those things are great. They really are. But they're a Band-Aid. All they're doing is putting something over that wound to keep it from getting dirty. But it's not fixing the problem. I mean, we need some Baxitration. We need some stitches, whatever. We need to put something on this wound so it can get better. And that's your attention. That's stress. That's how we correct things. So no matter how much stress management, quote, you do, and how much, these women are practiced, these men are practiced, you're still drowning and overwhelmed. It's still there. And the reason it's still there is because of what you're worried about. You're thinking about, oh my gosh, and this is a legit one, but am I going to have money for rent next week or next month? Okay, so, if I don't, what am I going to do? And this is playing itself over and over, and it's looping in your mind. And so your attention should be on, okay, right now I don't have money. What can I do? Is it as dire as it looks? Is it that I have no money, or I have money in my savings, but I don't have any available money right now? Do I have a 401k? Do I have other things I could possibly use? These are things that you have control over at this point. And so you start focusing on, what are the actions? What's one small action that I can take right now to move that needle and to keep me moving forward? And that may be about, with all these hiring and firings and all this stuff going on, is finding out the truth behind it. Am I really fired? Can this legally be done? Is there anything in writing? Is there a contract? All this. Find out the stuff that you can find out, and then focus on what you can take action with. I hope that's clear.
No, that is control what you can control. I think it's easy to get consumed in all the other factors. And the reality is those things are going to be what they are until you can change your situation. The only thing in the chaos you can actually change it most times is yourself. And then everything else is just bounces back off of that. So you change your energy, they change their energy.
Because the thing is, our attention is scattered. I mean, you sitting right there at your desk, you're probably thinking right now of something, the email that you didn't get, a meeting that you have coming up in the next hour, obligations that you have to take care of today to make sure. And so you're feeling mentally overload. You're emotionally drained and you're physically exhausted because you're trying to keep all this stuff in your brain. And remember, first of all, write it down. Look here, with stuff written, because I need to know what I need to get done that day. And I don't want to keep it in here, because I'm going to forget something because I'm trying to keep it in my brain. And so my breakthrough moment was realizing that shift of focus and, is not reducing stress. It actually changes the game when you shift your attention, because now you're in control. It's not controlling you.
Now, to be fair, I think your background kind of kicks into some of that, because you have somewhat of a military background where you've learned about hurry up and wait. How did that experience shape your understanding of finding calm within chaos rather than trying to escape it?
Wow. Not only do I have a military background, my father was in the military. He's retired military. I'm retired military. My husband's retired military. And my daughter was in the military, and she's a vet. So we ooze military. And especially
it's a family affair. Okay.
Yeah, we were all Air Force too. So Air Force. So the thing is, hurry up and wait. I knew about it beforehand because of my father. So I knew what he had to deal with. And I kind of knew the games. I always say the games the military play. And hurry up and wait. All that means is there's somewhere you got to be, something you got to do. So you hurry up. But when you get there, you wait. We do it every day. We do it on the phone when we call IT people. And then we're listening to that music and we're waiting. We hurry up and call because we need this done. And we're just sitting there listening to that music and we're waiting and we're waiting for someone to serve us. So after a while, you learn that, hey, what can I do in my wait time? I'm sitting in the car, listen to a podcast. I got an audio book I can listen to. I got a phone call I need to make. I can do this. So while I'm waiting for this IT person to come in on his phone, I'm probably writing another post or something, or I'm responding to an email, because I don't need focus here right now, right? Because they got me on hold. So what can I focus on? Back to attention. What can I use my attention on that will be effective for me at that time? Everything always seems urgent. And so we struggle to prioritize and we be reactive, and we're always putting out fires instead of leading strategically, and then small things start to trigger that frustration because we're all over the place and because our mental bandwidth is gone. And today, what we have to keep in our head and how much we have to do, man, sometimes I think we need to go back to the Little House on the Prairie days, because they didn't have to do half of what we had to do now, So the thing is, manage what you can manage. That's your attention. That's something that belongs to you. And what you give your attention is what you're focused on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Your body will go where your eyes go. I've learned that driving. That's one of the things that I realized. I was in a car with my friend, and his thing is, I need you to keep your eyes on the road. I hadn't driven for a while, and I got in a rental car, and I'm like, oh yeah, look over here, look over there. This thing is, do you realize the car is starting to go off onto the other side? So it was a reminder that it is true. Your body will go where your eyes go. Your mind goes where you bring it, and you have to be really, really careful about it. Let's talk about triggers, because you covered it. There are those times where you try to anticipate something, the fear of something, becomes bigger than the actual situation. So there are those times where people are going into work and or coming home. You've mentioned like there are those distractions, the band-aids we can put on things to distract us so we don't have to think about the problem that we have as opposed to addressing it. So, sometimes if it's going into work, you sit in the car before you go into the job and you're like, oh God, you got to prepare yourself for it. Or it could be the flip side where, work is your break, but your personal life is where you really need to be putting that time in. And you're trying to figure out, okay, well, I got to prepare myself for everything that has to happen when I go in. My father had a thing of, I need 20 minutes. When I get in the house, just give me 20 minutes and then I can hear everything that everybody has to say. But without that, I just got to decompress. And I didn't understand it until I got a little bit older. So can we talk about the triggers and then how to be able to manage it? The sitting in the car, the preparing yourself for things. Is it healthy? Is it not healthy? I know it's something that people put out there, but is it the best way to go about it?
Okay, one of my methods, my main method that I teach is called pause, focus, flow. It's the same concept as stop, drop, and roll. And you're asking, what does stop, drop, and roll does? It put out our fires. Well, these are your emotional. Pause, focus, flow puts out your emotional fires. And the reason it's so important, let me give you a little background on stop, drop, and roll. The reason we did that, and most of you are probably too young, but we used to come to school and we learned stop, drop, and roll. And then we had to practice it every month at least. And the thing is, you know what they say about practice? It becomes a habit. And so it was so ingrained in us that it became second nature. It was in our subconscious. And the beauty of it being in our subconscious is the fact that when that fire does happen, when that happens, and our automatic reaction is to freeze, what do you do? But our mind, our subconscious would take over and it would do what it needed to do to keep us safe. And so that's what the creation of pause, focus, flow is. So what you're talking is that transition time that your father needed, that 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is, that was giving him a time to transition from work to home and not take everybody else with him to work. And that's pause. So what pause does, that sitting in the car, that going to the restroom, sometimes that's the only place you get a break. Whatever it is that you need to take at that time, whether it's 5 minutes, 3 minutes. And I tell my ladies, look, if you can get 3 minutes, it's going to make a difference. So whatever time you get, taking that time gives you the space to assess. And that's all pause does. It gives you that space to run over what you need to in your mind. What's the real problem? Ask those hard questions. One of the things I tell my ladies is what we call the doorway pause, especially a lot of the women that I work with or are caregivers. And when you're taking care of someone with dementia or other ailments and they're elderly, maintaining your patience and your compassion in the face of all that sometimes is just hard. And so what I teach them to do is take what they call a doorway pause. Before you go into that room to take care of whatever it is that you need to take care of, just pause. Give yourself a breath. Give yourself the talk that you need. Okay, now let's go. You see, but that would prepare them. That was that quick transition that they needed to take care of the realities of life. But you were talking about triggers. Triggers are so much more than that transition period. There are things that we know will trigger us. So your choice, for me, most of the time, my choice is then if I know something triggers me, then it's not in my life. If I know watching TV or certain programs are going to make me feel a certain way that I don't want to feel, I don't watch it. Why would I do that to myself? Why would you do that to yourself? If there are certain things or certain people that when I'm around, I know it's going to get ugly, and it's your family member, you still don't have to see them, or you see them on your terms. And you lay those boundaries in place. But understanding your triggers allow you to take the actions that you need to take so you can best deal with them. Someone with PTSD, they don't send them back out there in the battlefield and say, oh, you'll get over it. Just keep listening to it and you'll be okay. No, that's not how we deal with triggers.
I am thankful for that. I think we're in a new age. As soon as I heard you say that, I thought about put some tussin on it. Back in the days where they would just say, you'll be all right. Now we're aware that there are things like PTSD. We're aware that there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of things that people are taking on, and you never know what somebody's dealing with. That makes me very cautious when I'm talking to someone. I appreciate the pause, because sometimes I have to realize, I remember once someone saying, you get away with saying some of the things that you say because you're not a small guy. And my thing is, that's not true. And then I thought about it to go, I mean, how would I know? Like I'm not a small man, so maybe that's your perspective. So from that point on, then I started to be able to think about that. I want to throw a curveball, because I was thinking about this when I was saying, oh, let me prep for the call. We've talked about boundaries from the standpoint of we have to put them in place in the situations where we may not get along with someone, but what about the times where we do? I was thinking about it, and I naturally an empathetic person. When I don't flinch and someone's doing something where normally somebody else might go, ooh, did you really say that? I get a lot of times where someone says, you know what, I feel like I could be myself around. And I was thinking about it to say, you know what, sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes that's a bad thing, because who are you when you're with everybody else? If that's someone that respects boundaries, then give me some of that. But if you're someone that, because we're comfortable, and you feel like, because we're so close, or because I feel so cool with you, like their inhibitions go away, and in some cases it allows them to feel like they should be able to overstep whatever boundaries you have in place. So how can you lovingly be able to explain to someone, no, that's actually a boundary that's there for a reason. So as much as I love you.
So for that one, there's going to be two answers.
Okay.
One of the first things I learned in my military career as a woman was start as you mean to go on. And the reason behind that, and I'll give you a little bit of the story. I was an electrician. I was one of two women in that whole electrical shop. There was not many women electricians. Because we were the only women, for me, I wanted to be one of the fellows. I wanted to get along. I didn't want them to feel like they had to treat me in any special way. Mm-hmm. So I allowed them to have their pinups. I allowed them to do their dirty talk back and forth between each other. And I'm sitting there just smiling. And I realized after a while, it really, really bothered me. And I kind of felt disrespected. Now, the problem with this was when I finally said something, I got pushback. Yes. You didn't say anything before. It wasn't a problem before. And so that's why I say always start as you mean to go on. If you feel a certain way about something, don't give in. Set your boundary right up front, because it's hard for people to understand when you change it later. And that's something, I'm not saying you can't, but that's kind of something you kind of helped along and you allowed to go along. So
there's
that's
some accountability in there. Yeah.
So that if that bothered you at the beginning, you probably should have set that boundary at the beginning with your friend. However, that does not mean it can't be changed. Another example, most of the time, well, all the time, I don't like people cussing around me. It's offensive, and it almost feels like a slap to me. So most people who know me know I don't like you cussing around me. Just don't. And most of them, even if they're cussers, if it's slip, they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mischelle." So that lets me know they know that boundary. Yeah, I set that boundary, because why would I let myself get slapped in the face every time someone talked to me? So one, you can go back to this person and say, I love that you feel that you can be open with me, and I want you to continue that. However, there are certain instances where I'm a little uncomfortable here and here. Give them specifics and say, can we pull back on those? And if you don't get it, the next time it happens, I'll say, okay, this is what I was talking about, and help them. You're giving them the opportunity to gracefully buy in with you, and you're setting your boundary.
I love it. As a guy thinking about relationships, I am on the fence with it a little bit, but I've also tried it to know that it works in the right situation. So any fellas that are out there and they're just like, no, that's not true, there's such a thing as timing. Like, you have to know when to be able to go with that approach. It doesn't work across the board, but it does work. And I can say that because I know you've actually given me this advice in situations, and I used it when you suggested to use it, and it actually works. So there is proof positive that it does work.
But there are times you just have to cut those ties. If they're not going to respect something with you, and they're going to keep, you're telling them, you're being kind, and you're telling them, I've let this go and I was wrong. Mm-hmm. Own up to your part. I was wrong, but it really does bother me. I feel that you give others more respect. then you give me, and I know you don't mean to, but can we pull back a little on that? I mean, or you're continually to teach that person that it's okay to disrespect you, because that's what you're doing. You're teaching them how to treat you.
No, it's fair because I can be easy to talk to, and because more than not, I'm not an easily offended person. I do know that there are times where, based on my personality, I put myself in situations, and I got to a certain point where I realized if it's happening with multiple people, then I'm the common thread in it, and I had to start looking at being able to take accountability in it. But I do know that there's times where if you let it go on but so long, by the time you do go to say something, I've had friends like one person, she was like, "Oh, well, I know I can do that with you." And I'm like, "No, you really can't. I'm telling you not to do that." And you're telling me, no, I can do that. To go, okay, I see you're not taking it serious enough. So now I have to actually put a wall up to be able to put that boundary in place, because otherwise that leads to I'm going to have to cut you off. So
our conversations will be less because I'm not comfortable with it. I mean, I don't want to know the personal details of your bedroom, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. So, well, now let's flip this, because I want to bring it more to the corporate side for a moment. There are a lot of people that were working from home, and they're dealing with that change of being someone where they have to start going back into the office. So where they were setting those boundaries and they were finding balance at home, where they may not have gotten along with someone at the job, but they were great working with them when they work from home because they didn't have to see the person like that. Now they're going back into the office, and now is one of those times where, like you said, you have to start right from the beginning. Is there any ideas or advice that you can give someone when it comes to going back into the office? I imagine this is something that HR should be talking about when they're thinking about wellness, because it is a change going back into the office and dealing with people all over again.
Go back in, I almost say in stealth. I would be observant. Before you react, be observant, because everybody's dealing with the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to find out who they need to be, and everything around them is chaos. So they don't know from day to day. They're dealing with the same stressors you're dealing with, and everyone deals with them differently. And they don't know if they're going to have a job tomorrow. They don't know if they're in competition directly with you. Everyone doesn't handle that competition well. So I would be watchful. I would sit on pause for a minute, and I'll see where I can be of value, where I can step in my excellence. Because these are things that you have to control over, right? When you're giving value, when you're being excellent, when you're setting your boundaries, then you are in control of your situation. And when you're in control of your situation, you have to be comfortable with those boundaries that you set. So, for instance, if I set these boundaries and said, look, I got kids at home. They're home at 4:30. I get off at 4. I need to be home by 5, or I don't know what I'm walking into. And your boss says, well, we need you to stay to 6 or whatever. 1 or 2 times, that's fine. We have to do those things. But you don't have to subject yourself to that on a constant level. And so at that point, you have to make a decision. Am I going to let them walk over me? I still may not even get to keep the job, or I'm going to stand up my principles of what's important to me and be okay with the consequences.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Right, so we talked about some of the challenges and struggles that are out there. We've talked about some of the preventative measures. Let's talk about making an impact. You mentioned that rest is a strategy, not a reward. How does reframing rest this way impact decision-making capabilities?
For corporate, I think this is something that they really need to learn. Tired people make reactive decisions. Simple as that. And well-rested people make strategic decisions. So who do you want working for you? Do you want someone who's strategic, or do you want someone who's reactive? Who's going to be better for your organization in the long run? So high performance isn't about an endless hustle. It's about optimized output. And there's actual data that shows that well-rested leaders make 30% better decisions, right? They're 20% more innovative. I want some of them. And lead teams with higher retention and engagement. Who do you want on your team?
There you go. It's definitely true, especially on the corporate side. I know things are different now, but I remember on the corporate days coming up where I remember being at Lucky Magazine once, and they said nobody's taking a day off for the next 2 months. We've got work to do. People came in, they were sick. So it was working its way around the office. It was a miserable, miserable time. And the production of work, it just waned because people were miserable. Once that was done and everybody was able to get back to their regular lives, work picked right back up again. It's something where, energy matters, and you have to really be able to think about what kind of situation you put people in.
So let me ask you a question. Do you know your body clock?
Yes.
Okay. Because most people don't. And it's important to understand when you're most logical, when you work better on logical and written stuff, when you're more creative, when is your time that you usually crash. All this goes on, and everybody has their own cycle. And I think for businesses, one of the good things to do is understanding your people's cycle, because then you're able to utilize them to the best of their ability.
Absolutely.
And so if most people in your office are great thinkers and logical in the morning, that's when you do all your written material. That's when you do things that need strategy. That's when you do things that need logic and your IT things and all those type things. That's when you do that. If they're more creative in the afternoon, that's when you do your presentations and find out how people work and get the most out of them. I mean, that's what you're supposed to do as a leader, right?
It's a powerful statement. I know that I've had some great managers that learned that about me. And then there are some that wanted me to work within their limits. And you get what you get. I'll give you the best that I can get. But similar to what you said, where, there are people that know that they have to leave at a certain time. I'm a night person. So if I say I'm going to leave at 5, most likely when I get home, I might log back in and knock out a couple of extra things. Or when I really realized I got the most production is when everybody else left work. So that final 2 hours, if I stayed like until 7 or something like that, that was more productive than the better part of my day. Because I didn't have anybody coming up and saying, hey, so what are you doing? And what's going on? And they were breaking up their day by interrupting my day. So it's definitely something where I know I was more productive working from home. And once I was able to prove that, they actually were like, yeah, you know what, you can work from home because you give us twice as much work without twice as many distractions. So I definitely think leadership and understanding when you're productive and how you're productive makes a big, big difference. And I think it works both professionally and personally.
Yes, it does.
I know relationship-wise, I had learned, do not have a serious conversation first thing in the morning with my ex. Like, oh my goodness. I didn't like it. She didn't like it. And it was just one of those things. Finally, one day we were like, you know what? I'm not really a morning person for those kind of conversations. And we both laughed because we're like, neither am I.
But even if you lay down, when you get ready to go to sleep, yeah, you may be a night person, but your mind is telling you, okay, I'm laying down. The last thing you want to do is have a serious conversation about what you want for dinner the next day or whatever, So understanding that what usually happens first thing, and I'm not a first thing in the morning and I'm not a last thing at night person to have good conversations. But my husband says I do need to get my 2,000 words out. Now, sometimes when I go out on a tangent, he'll go, did you get your 2,000 words today?
I understand it.
But yeah, you're right. Understanding your body clocks, understanding it also helps you temper how you react. If you're not good in that middle of the afternoon, don't schedule anything in the middle. I crash, me personally, around 2. Between 2 and 4, I'm no good. You're not going to get anything good from me. I'm staring at the computer. So if you want me to work, let me work first thing in the morning, all the way through. I got you. And I'm going to get more done in that time than any other thing. I could get most of my work done. Usually I got all of it done first thing in the morning. Like you said, no interruptions. Get out.
Okay, so how do you convince skeptical executives that this kind of strategy works and get them to start testing it out where they can actually give it enough time to be able to see those kind of results?
Try it. You're like it. No, no. See, y'all, we were talking about our conversations, but executives, the unfortunate part is some people just will not give their best. And so as a leader, I would be selective on who I tried it out with. I would try it out on my good, dependable workers, people that I know are already good and productive and that I know don't need me to motivate them, that are self-motivated. And those are the people I would work with. And if the other ones would complain, look at what they do. I have never gotten that from you. when you're ready to be responsible, I'll tell it like it is, when you're ready to be responsible, when you're ready to be self-motivated, hey, I'll put you in the same program. But until then, until you show me something different than you're doing now, this is for a few select.
I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at that. I know one of the things that I used to say as a manager is you can't teach hunger. So when they're like, oh, well, you got to get more out of that person. If they're not worried about their check, there's only but so much I can do about it. And I don't want to stand over anybody's shoulder, and I don't want to have to threaten them about, well, if you don't do this, then this. Your work is your work. You know what I mean? If you need help, ask for help. But beyond that, I'm going to trust that you're going to get done what you need to get done. But I love that this isn't just something for corporate and employees. This is something that entrepreneurs can think about, whether you're a solopreneur or you're outsourcing things. It's something that the better you understand the people that you're working with, the better you can assign things in a way that allows them to be able to be productive and stop making it so much about you, but making it about the results that you can get. And I love the way that you did that.
Well, talking about productive, it made me think of something. Here's my big is everyone has their strength and everyone has their weaknesses. And as a leader, it's important for you to find out each one of your team members' strengths and weaknesses, and then know your own strengths and weaknesses. Now, the way to build a phenomenal team is to have everyone work in their strength. You don't have to be everything to everybody. You have your strength. And so a perfect example, I used to work in printing a while back, and I was a team lead, and the person that I worked with was also, we were around the same age, so there's nothing. He was old school printing. I was computer age printing.
Okay.
Everything I did, I could write on that computer. I could make the computer, make the page do this and do that, and then send it to the printer, and the printer would print it. We're good to go. He knew how to do all the measurements to figure out where something had to be. I was never that person. I didn't come in that era, so I didn't learn those mathematics and stuff. But there were times when his expertise overrode mine, and there were times when my expertise would make his job better. And so we, in that atmosphere, in that environment, we would play on our own strengths, and we would work on the things that were in our own strengths. Now, I had to know everything in that shop, and I had to know how to run all the machines and everything. But we chose the types of jobs that catered to our strengths. And I'd let him do this. Now, if he wasn't there that day, I could do whatever it was that he needed done or they needed done. But I let him shine in his strength, and I let me shine in my strength. And we were known for our skills in those particular areas.
Well, I mean, you've highlighted something that, I mean, I think it starts with ego. It sounds like you were able to remove your ego, and that jockeying for a certain spot where, people feel like, well, I know this, so it has to be this way, or I know this, it has to be that way. To be able to actually play that someone else's strengths allows you to be able to focus more on yours. So I definitely love that. And I think it's something that can be universal. It can work in the office. It can work in a lot of different places in life. The one thing I think I push back.
In your home life, it can work,
in your
home. Everyone in that home ecosystem has a strength. Your kids, and that's part of teaching your kids how to grow up and to be effective in society, is understanding how to do the different things around the home. And then once they learn all the things, just like in a shop, you have to learn all the machines. So you got to learn how to do laundry. You got to learn how to iron. You have to learn how to cook. You have to learn how to do all the things, clean the bathroom, take out the trash. But you may be better at washing the clothes. So, hey, your job is the clothes, because you are. And don't be afraid. This is one thing I learned really big. Don't be afraid to tell them you appreciate the effort and the things that they are doing, because that's so important. We're always quick to point out what you're not doing right, but very rarely do we tell my coworkers, when I, would tell them, I just want you to know I really appreciate, your being there for me. And they would turn around and say, oh, that meant so much. Mm-hmm. You just don't know. And think about your child and say, hey, I really appreciate your taking the time to learn this. I know that when you're out there on your own, you're going to have the best clothes or whatever it is, but we have to train up that child. We have to train up our team so that when we leave them better than when we came in. And that should be your ultimate goal. When I walk out of here, they should be able to carry on without me.
Legacy building, absolutely. We've all run into some people where we're like, how did you make it this far in life? Because they weren't prepared for anything. And it's just, God bless them. I feel like the people that are of service find them, and then they just kind of protect them from the world, because they're like, if I leave you to your own devices, who knows what could happen to you? So they kind of go from one person to the next to the next. And I think that's, it's unfortunate, because I am much more of someone that doesn't really like asking for help. You know that. I am someone that if I can learn the process, then I can figure out when I'm away from it and find my way back to it. But just the asking for help, it's one of those things where I realize anytime I ask someone for help, I want to give back twice as much, because I appreciate their time, because I know how much I value my time. So I know back in the days, it was something where if you tried to get someone to be able to put you on and give you insights and all the rest of it, you had to show them what you did with it before you came back and asked for anything else.
So I need to get in here and I need to ask you a question.
Yes.
You said you hate asking for help, which you do.
Mm-hmm.
I can say that.
Mm-hmm.
But ask yourself this, that time that you spent learning that system, figuring it out, how much better, to a person who just said they value their time, how much better would it have been if you'd accepted that help and got done sooner, and maybe even more effectively than you trying to figure it out on your own?
You want my most honest response or a nice
Your
PC
honest
response?
response.
My honest response would be learning how to do it myself is probably more efficient than how long I would feel indebted to that person by asking them for help. That's kind of how my mind would work in those situations, depending on who it is that I'm asking. I've come to you and asked for help. There are some people that I know that I can ask for help, and I don't feel like it's necessarily lorded over me. But I know if it's something where it's one of those situations, that is literally how my mind would work. I would
Oh, then
rather
I
go
would never
through it.
ask that person for help, period. They would not be on my radar for the person to ask for help. But I mean, literally, when there's someone that you can ask for help and you've taken, we won't talk about what I'm talking about, but you're going to know what I'm talking about. We're talking about something someone could have told you to do in 3 or 4 steps.
Mm-hmm.
You took 2 days trying to figure it out.
Oh yeah, no. I don't. I thankfully, as much as I don't like asking for help, I have also evolved to the point where I'm able to say that's not my expertise, and because it's not my expertise, I'm willing to ask. You know, what's the best way to be able to do this? It actually gets to the point where with some of my friends, it gets on their nerves where they're like, you walked in and you knew what you wanted, but you got up to when you came to look at the menu, you still ask them what did they recommend? And I'm like, because I had my thoughts, but maybe they can tell me something that just broadens my horizons a little bit more, and I could get a better experience. So I am able to move that to the side when I know it's definitely not something that I know. But when it's something that I feel like I want to learn, yeah, I'm not wired right. I am going to say that that's actually something interesting enough where I want to know the ins and outs of it.
Well, that's
So I'd
different.
rather I'll go through the mud to be able to get to the other side of it. But for
Yeah, that's different. That's different of trying to learn a new skill or trying to look. But I'm talking about sitting in your strengths, and when you can delegate, which is the key word, when you can
Mhm.
delegate certain tasks to other people or other things, then why not? When one, you probably don't like doing that task at all anyway. You know where I'm going with that. You know.
I do. I
Okay.
do. I'm getting better with it as time goes by. But
Okay.
it was working through some trust issues of, again, like you can't teach hunger. I don't mind handing something to someone if I know they've got the same passion about it as I do. But if it's something where I feel like I hand it to someone and in the time it takes for them to complete it, I could have done it myself, then there's a level of I won't do that again. And then that's when somebody's like, well, if you knew you needed help, why didn't you ask? Because I mean, in the time that it would have taken you to decide to take it serious, I could have done that and done a couple of other things. So then I don't want to be frustrated with that person if I know that's their personality. So I think that comes with knowing your audience. And
Boundary
I,
is called
yes.
deadlines. Deadlines. I deal on deadlines. I do. When do you think you can get to it?
Mm,
Get to it to next week. Oh,
okay.
don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
I got it. Thank you.
Okay.
I always ask deadlines. And when people ask me to do things, question, what's your deadline? When is your drop dead deadline? Because I work on deadlines. And if I need to give you something, I want to make sure you get it on time. What's your deadline? And if they say a deadline, oh, I need it tomorrow. I'm sorry. There's no way I can get to it tomorrow. So you may have to do it yourself, or I can get it to you by next week.
I can attest to your honest conversation that you're one of the people that introduced me to that as a concept to go. That's what made where I felt more comfortable asking you for things where it's okay. I know if I ask you, you'll give me an honest response of yes, I can do it, or no, I can't. Where some people will say, well, I didn't want to disappoint you. Well, so you didn't want to disappoint me in the moment, but you were willing to disappoint me later. So it's that little balance where it's a fine line. It's trying to figure it out. But these are, this is how we grow and this is how we evolve, and we have to be able to understand who our audience is. I like to tell people you always have to consider the source. You don't know what they're going through. So somebody could be having a bad day. If I know somebody's having a bad day, well, I'm going to come to you and ask you if I can add something from my to-do list to your to-do list. So it kind of goes back to timing with that as well. Okay, well, we've talked about some preventative measures, some impact things that you can do to be able to address some of the challenges and things that are out there. Let's talk about one thing. We talked about on the corporate side, we've talked about on the personal side and the relationship side. We can cover all of those things, but I'd like to kind of cover each one and just give them like one thing for them to take action with that can help them wherever they're at in their journey. Let's start with whatever you want. Do you want to start more on the personal side or the professional side?
Well, this one works for all sides.
Universal.
Sovereignty.
Okay.
Time sovereignty. The one thing is at work, define your work hours and stick to them. And that means even if you bring work home, I mean, it's a simple thing of telling honey or telling kids, I need to go in here for a few minutes. I'll be working to 7. If you don't interrupt me, I'll get it done in time and I'm yours after. And you said that, and I've seen this in action. I had one client who had teenage girls. She had her own business and she had her own office in her home. And when her girls would come home, they would naturally come home from school, go into the office and just tell mom about their day and all that stuff. And she said she never got work done. And I said, put that boundary in. She said, well, they won't listen. No. Close the door, put a note or one of those hanging door things. I'm working. And then you have a meeting with the family and you say, hey, I'm going to start using this door hanger. And when this is on the door, it means I'm working and I cannot be disturbed. And she started using it and her daughters didn't come in and interrupt her. And so she started getting lonely. And so she would go out there and talk to them. And they said, Mom, you're supposed to be working. Go back in your office. Bye.
I love that. You actually answered in part the next question I was going to ask you. You help women stop reacting and start reclaiming control. What's measurable ripple effect of seeing people make this kind of shift in their life? But you kind of covered it, but can you give like any other examples? Because I know you see it all the time with all the people that you work with where they start to say like, oh my God, I had that aha moment of this actually works. And then they get back to you with the excitement of it.
Well, they have higher confidence because what they're doing is now they're leading instead of just responding. And in every aspect of our lives as women, we're leaders. We're leaders in our home. We're leaders with our children, growing up the child as they should go. We're leaders, at work. We're leaders in our community. We're the action takers. And then there's more presence at home, no more half listening to your loved ones because you've set those boundaries in place. One of the things my daughter used to always complain about is, Mom, you're not listening to me. And I'm like, look at me. That's that She says, you didn't hear what I said. However, we changed that. And she began to know when was a good time to talk to me. When I'm focused, because I'm focused, when I'm focused on cooking or when I'm focused on something, it is hard to talk to me because I'm trying to remember all the ingredients or whatever it is. And I'm trying to take care of that. But the one thing we did is, my husband was in a high job, a job that he had to go to a lot of events and things like that. And I, as his wife, had to go with him. Well, my daughter was in baseball, basketball, track. Okay. And when you're a parent and you have to do all these corporate things or military things, and then your child always wants you to be there. You have to decide how you're going to handle that. And for her, we had that conversations. We're not going to always be able to be there for everything, but when we can, even if we can show up for a short time, we're going to be there and support you. And because that conversation was had, she was okay with that. And I remember one time my husband and he was in a tux. I was in this long gown. And we were walking up the bleachers. and sat on the bleachers. I think it was for just a half an hour of this basketball game.
Adorable.
But it meant when we walked off to that bleacher and we waved, you could tell by her face, it meant the world to her because she knew no matter what we were doing, nothing was more important than showing up for her. And when we can, she knew we would be there. And
I
so
love that.
the final thing is less exhaustion. Is because you're working smarter, not harder. I hate that phrase, but it's true because you're focused. And by the way, we'll talk about this another day, but that multitasking is really switch tasking, and it's a fallacy. So you're more focused and you don't have to work as hard.
I'm going to hold you to that because that's something I definitely want to know more about. I get the concept, but for you to be able to break that down, I absolutely have to have you come back and be able to explain that.
Science proof, your mind is switching and it takes so many minutes for you to get back in session to what you got to do. So you're fooling yourself. I want to break out into that song. You fooling yourself, but I'm going to be good.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, let's switch to something real quick. In your content, you talk about unlearning stress rather than managing it. So my mind automatically went to when people are in survival mode, they kind of go into that it is what it is instead of trying to figure out how to make it not is what it is. How can they pull themselves up out of it? So how does maintaining strong boundaries through the unlearning process actually accelerate getting back on strong footing as opposed to it is what it is?
When you're unlearning things, what I'm saying is we're set to this invisible rule book of rules that we've learned, whether it's expectations we put on ourselves, expectations from others, beliefs and values we brought into the picture with us, lies that we brought into the picture with us, just all this stuff on how we're supposed to be, how we're supposed to act. I mean, think about a kid. When it's a little girl, what's her first toy? Come on,
Yeah,
quick,
doll.
quick.
A
What is it?
doll, a doll, a doll,
A
a doll.
doll.
Yeah.
So what does she do? She feeds it. She nurtures it. She changes diapers. She keeps it from crying. What is a boy's first toy?
Action figure, cars.
Yes, yes. He's the leader. He's running his team. He's doing this. Okay. So these are rules, these subconscious rules that we're taught all along the road. So what does a woman do? She's supposed to take care of the home. She's supposed to make sure she's there to support everybody, to nurture everybody, to make sure they're okay. Because that's what we learn. And there are these rules that we're living our lives by. And when someone asks me, what do? Is I say, I teach women how to stop killing themselves because we are emotionally, mentally, and physically. Because emotional wellness affects our bodies. It affects your nervous system. It affects your immune system. It affects your gut. All of these things are affected by that stress that you're carrying. And the only way to unlearn it is to challenge the rules that you've been living.
I love it. I'm thankful that I came up under a strong woman that told me to question everything if it doesn't seem right to me. And if it seemed like it was something that was setting me back, then we need to have a conversation. And she was open to having those conversations. And it prepared me for life in ways that I'm thankful for now because I'm capable of unlearning something. As much as as people say, oh, you think you're so smart, like you got an answer for everything. I love learning something new. I love getting a new perspective from someone because it broadens your horizons. It teaches you how to be able to unlearn those things. The things I learned over the years, the expectations, oh my goodness. If I listened to that, I'd be worse of a mess than I am now. I can't do that. Being tall, if I had your height, I'd play basketball. People put me on paths that I didn't necessarily want to be on. And I mean, I loved playing sports, but once it became more of a job, I started going, well, if I'm going to have to do that like a job, I might as well do a job that I'd actually enjoy just as much. So I think it's really important to understand that there are expectations, but expectations are things that people expect, but they're not guaranteed. So you're welcome to expect it, but I have to set the standard of what I can actually deliver on. And I will say that, as always, you've delivered. And I thank you for it because this is just the kind of conversation I wanted people to be able to listen in on. And I know people are going to be able to get different things. I want you to tell us a bit about what you're doing and who you help and why. Give them a reason to be able to check you out. I know you've been working on some workshops and things like that. Catch us up. Give us some extra information on where they can find you and who should be looking for you.
Well, right now I have a wait list and for a free webinar that I'm giving on dealing with self-induced stress that we're dealing with, and how to use the pause, focus, flow method, and how to reassess where we are now. And so I do have a wait list, and I'll make sure you have that link, but it's real easy. It's webinar.mischelleoneal.net/stress. That's it. But I'll give that to you because no one knows how to spell my name anyway.
I will make sure it's in the bio, it's on the website, it's in the comments. I
Yeah.
will make sure that it's available. But yeah, so now I know you have the webinar coming up. You work with women, you help save their lives and keep them from burning out and teaching them stress management. I can see that being something more on the individual level. What about on the corporate side? I know there's a lot of people going back into the office, and there's HR where they have to figure out how to be able to help people manage the office politics. Is
I
there
would
like
love
wellness or anything that you do?
absolutely love to do workshops in the corporate setting. I do work more in group level, and like you said, with corporate, it would be a workshop because I think this is imperative. This is important to our growth in the society that we're living in right now. How to deal with society and the unnatural, what's the word I'm looking for? The uncertainty of our day to day. And so if we set those habits in place, then we're able to deal with whatever comes down the line. It's like medication. That's one of the things I liked about the military. Military believed in preventive medicine. They believed in making sure you got your teeth taken care of twice a year. They believed in making sure you did your once a year full over body workup. They believed in keeping their machine, because that's what you were. They believed in keeping their machine at optimum level. And that's how we have to think about our mind and our body and our emotions, is keeping it at optimal level so that when that storm comes, we're able to deal with it, to roll with it and do those things. And we get knocked upside the head, we can get up like whatever boxer you like, because I was getting ready to name one and I said, I'll leave that one alone. And we're able to get back up and keep fighting. And so it's so important that I can get into these areas and teach this process of preventive stress and attention management.
I'm a big fan of preventative measures. I think we all serve as examples in life. People have heard me say it again and again. I think we can learn from other people's mistakes. And what we've learned along the way is if you don't address it, eventually it'll bubble up. And whether you end up being the angry black man in an office, or you end up going off on someone because you're having a day and they just didn't take the time to see you were having one, all of that is wellness. All of that falls under the umbrella of being more cognizant of the people that you're working with and navigating how to be able to make sure that you're getting the best out of everybody. Didn't actually do the military, but I did do the cadets from childhood up into the teens. So I appreciated the discipline and the creation of habits, and knowing if you what is it, if you get ready, you don't have to if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. When you know what the habits are, if you know what the things that you are supposed to do to get you at your best, then it doesn't seem like work. It just becomes part of your natural life, and it's better for it. It's getting past that wall when you first go to the gym, and when you finally get to that point where you feel good about it again, you're going, why did I wait so long?
And the body, when you don't do it, your body goes, hello, please do something.
There are the warning signs all over, and whether it's mental, whether it always finds a way to eke out. And I think one of the things that's great is that you're able to help people to address them in the multiple ways that it can come out. And you're not just saving their peace of mind, you're saving other people's peace of mind, because somebody could be having a good day and hurt people hurt people.
And this is even in community. I mean, community have programs for women or caregiving facilities. They have programs for their people who are bringing their residents to them to help them manage that. So they're in every aspect of life. This is something that needs to be unlearned.
Okay, well, I want to make sure that we're covering all the things that you can help people unlearn, and make sure that they know the best way to be able to find you so you can help them through that process, because one of the toughest things is getting started. But once you start seeing the progress, once you start seeing things, it motivates you enough to be able to go, well, if I can do one boundary, I can do two. And next thing you know, you've got a nice, safe space for yourself. So I love it. I definitely want to make sure that we covered as much as we could, but not overwhelm people. So I need to have you come back. I definitely want to cover because you tease the audience, and I'm going to get in trouble with people because they're going to say, see, why'd she do that? Why'd she bring that up? And then how long am I going to have to wait to have her back? So we'll work out
All you
something
got to
on your
do is hit
schedule.
me up. Look,
Okay.
I need you again. You know that.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. Well, give us the website once again, and let's make sure that they have it, because I know sometimes we'll say it and then people go, shoot, I didn't have a pen.
I'll
Let's
give you
make sure that they
the
have it,
QR
and I'll put
code
it in the
too. And
comments and everything
it's
else.
easy. It's webinar.Mischelle, Mischelle, O'Neal, ONEAL, all one word, .net, NET/stress.
There we go. As in get rid of it. I like it.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, we've got that. I definitely want to make sure that I'm trying to put you in contact with the people that I know that are on the HR side, because I know office politics are just, it's something that just comes with being in the office. It's something that just comes with the job, and there aren't nearly enough people that are dealing with it. There are a lot of people that have their own business and they've got employees, but they don't really have a real HR. Get somebody that can come in and actually help with the mental stability and make sure that you're getting people out performing at their best, and you're dealing with the different things that you may be too busy to be able to see, but I know that you can point it out because you point out things that I'm missing all the time. And I like to think that I see all kinds of things, but it's nothing like having someone with fresh eyes be able to take a look. So I want to make sure that I convey that part before we close things out, because it's not just the bigger offices. It's the small offices where you think everybody likes you, and then when you leave the room, there's that gasp of, and you just, let's fix all of that. Let's make it a place where if you're going back into the office, you're good.
Climate of the room.
Mm-hmm. Let's cut down on the woo-saws and a little more hoo-ha's, like, okay, let's get people into a happier place. Okay, so with that, I am going to say thank you so much. I am going to say if there are any questions or follow-ups, definitely leave them in the comments, and I will make sure that Mischelle gets them or reach out directly. And like, share, and subscribe. I will definitely have Mischelle come back, and we'll cover some more things that I think will be helpful. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time. Thank you for tuning in to the Strategic Thinkers Podcast. Remember, when you can make the inconvenient convenient, people are willing to pay you for the experience. The better the experience, the more they'll not only pay you, but help others pay you. Serving as brand champions. My name is Sean Atkinson, and I'm wishing you well on your journey to your definition of success. If you find this podcast interesting, helpful, worth a listen, like, share, and subscribe. Leave a positive review so people know to check it out, and I'll see you next time.